you've seen enough of my videos or read enough of my articles, you know that the number one advice I give is always prioritize tenant screening. And what does tenant screening mean when it comes to finding a qualified rental applicant? I mean, verifying their credit history, their criminal history, running an eviction report, gathering as much data as you can to make a legal, qualified screening decision in order to find the most qualified rental applicant for your rental house. Qualified means someone who's likely to pay their rent on time, follow property rules, and maintain the property and keep your neighborhood and property safe. My name is Kaycee Miller. I work for Rentec Direct property management software. I'm also a landlord, real estate investor, real estate developer, and I've written hundreds of articles over the past decade about how to be a great landlord, how to be a good tenant, and what it takes to be a great property manager. So today I want to really focus in on tenant screening and specifically criminal background reports. Now, using a criminal background report is a way that you can make a qualified screening criteria decision about a rental applicant. But it's always super important to understand your legal responsibility in maintaining and upholding federal fair housing laws and any state, local, countywide, federal regulations that are in place that help you make legal screening decisions. So when it comes to criminal background, usually you can pull a criminal history report on a rental applicant to see if they have been convicted of any violent crimes that could make it so they might be a dangerous renter in your rental property. Now, I say lots of words like could be or might be, and you're making decisions that are qualifiable or quantifiable based on data, but it all has to do with the likelihood that a tenant might not be a good renter based on past convicted behavior. But again, all of this is determined by your state, local, federal laws because some jurisdictions have laws where you can't even use criminal history until your tenant has passed all the other screening criteria, or you can't even use criminal records at all. Like in Seattle has a law in place where you can't even use criminal records for tenant screening. Usually that has to do with preventing discrimination and giving renters fair chance at housing. But in other cases where you can legally look at someone's criminal record, what you're trying to determine is looking back at past criminal convictions of crimes that might prove dangerous to your property or the surrounding neighborhood or other tenants in your property. Now, using criminal records, there's some important things to consider. Criminal records are recorded based on someone's name, date of birth, and property address. So if you think of someone's name, there might be lots of people by the same name out there on a national criminal database. But you're then try to narrow it down by, do they have the same name as your rental applicant and the same birthday? Is the address match anything on their rental history that they provide on your rental applicant? And this has to do the discrepancy on what's reported on a nationwide criminal history has to do with how a local jurisdiction reports criminal crimes to a nationwide database. So when you're determining which tenant screening vendor to use, you want to find one that has a really robust criminal database and is working with a tenant screening provider that can really show lots of nationwide criminal history, but then also allow you to narrow down to a state, city, or county level to really determine the criminal history of a rental applicant. In some cases, different counties or cities don't even have digital records of criminal history. So when you pull which is why they're not showing up in the national database. So if you pull a criminal record report on a tenant in a specific county based on property address, that actually might require someone physically going down to a courthouse and manually going through paper copies of criminal records to find one that could match a rental applicant. So when you are pulling a tenant screening report, that's why there might be different levels of the types of searches that you can do. And so you need to really determine, is that something that you want to do? Is nationwide criminal database going to be okay? Or do you really want to go down to that county level and really specific level to find out whether or not you are going to approve this rental applicant? That's why criminal history is just one of those data points that you might use for making a housing decision. But you can also look at credit reports, eviction history reports, and sex offender national database. These are all different reports that you can use to make a housing decision to determine if someone is going to be a qualified renter for your rental house. There's lots of different ways to consider tenant screening. I've gone over credit reports, criminal reports. We'll touch base on eviction history and what that looks like in terms of making a housing decision. My name is Kaycee Miller. I work for Rentec Direct property management software. I'm always here to help you learn different tips and advice for how to be a great property manager or landlord or investor. If you have any ideas of things that you want to learn more about, let us know in the comments and follow for more videos.